The civil rights movement was a significant turning point for the African American community. It would give them the rights they had been fighting for many years. There were many prominent figures during the movement who are well known today, such as Martin Luther King Jr., but there were many who were never properly recognized as well, today known as unsung heroes. One unsung hero in particular is Fred Shuttlesworth, one of the biggest contributors towards gaining equal rights. Fred Shuttlesworth would go on to participate in the movement in numerous ways. Shuttlesworth would work with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People to get African Americans the right to vote. Once the NAACP was outlawed in his home state, Shuttlesworth decided to found the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. There he would continue the work he was doing with the NAACP and focus on getting rid of segregation in Birmingham. Along with Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders, Shuttlesworth would found the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Together they would fight for civil rights without the use of violence, organizing boycotts, protests, and parades. To help end bus segregation, Shuttlesworth partook in the Freedom Rides, where people rode buses into segregated areas in the South. Shuttlesworth's work's impact on the civil rights movement was that it had spread awareness, inspiring others to join. Multiple organizations dedicated towards the civil rights movement would be formed. The movement would grow stronger as his work helped many realize that their rights were worth fighting for and that they had a chance. Shuttlesworth would help teach people how to fight for their rights without the use of violence, which would help set down the tone for the movement. Progress towards ending segregation and gaining equal rights would be made as support for the movement had increased. Eventually, laws were instituted against racial discrimination, with Shuttlesworth's commitment to the movement and the numerous boycotts, protests, and marches playing a major role to fight against prejudice. As one of the biggest contributors to the civil rights movement, the legacy of Shuttlesworth lives on. In today's society, segregation no longer exists, and everyone has equal rights due to the civil rights movement. Shuttlesworth's work during the movement helped bring society to where it is today. Shuttlesworth's work was not easy, as he would be arrested, beat, and threatened numerous times, but still he refused to give up.
The Ku Klux Klan tried to blow me into heaven, blow me away. But you don't kill leaders, you don't kill the idea if you kill the person. But God saved me because he had to have somebody to go through a spectacular demonstration of his power to live in Birmingham. And when the detective said to me, he said, "If I were you, I'd get out of town as quick as I could." I said, "Well, the officer, you're not me. And you go back and tell your Klan brother that if God could save me through this, I'm here for the duration, and the war is on."
Shuttlesworth is remembered today as one of the top leaders of the civil rights movement. His determination to get African American the rights they deserve had inspired many people back then and continues to do so today. Although segregation no longer exists and everyone has equal rights, racism is still present in society. There are still people who still discriminate others based off of their skin color. As a result, people have decided to continue Shuttlesworth's work as movements have been started for the purpose of gaining equality, such as the Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a movement dedicated to intervening whenever the African American community faces injustices based on a person's skin. They have continued Shuttlesworth's work in the modern civil rights movement by holding non-violent protests and marches. Even though Shuttlesworth may no longer be alive, his work still influences the modern civil rights movement.